Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of From Adversity to Awakening. I am your host, Peggy O'Neill, and I have a very special guest today. Another very special guest named Mike Lattimore. Da, 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 da. Here he is. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Peggy.
Yeah, so nice that you could be here. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mike. Um, he's a very accomplished person. He has a lot of accolades, especially in the area of human service. So I am going to have to read because it's too much for me to remember. So Michael Lattimore is a transformational technology coach. And is it your company that's called Success Support LLC? Yeah,
Indeed.
as
Yep.
we see behind you, yes. And he assists people in creating a life and life work that makes their heart sing.
Hmm.
For the past 20 years, he's also served the community at large as a cybersecurity awareness evangelist, helping people, especially seniors, stay safe in cyberspace.
Yes.
So thank you for that service.
Hmm.
Additionally, Michael is a reverend, an ordained New Thought metaphysical minister at AHIAH, Center for Living Spiritual Living. What's that acronym stand for, Michael?
Ahaya. Ahaya. It's
Ahaya.
it's Aramaic. It means I am that I am.
Oh, I thought it was an acronym. I'm so glad I stopped to ask you.
Oh,
Okay, at the I Am That I Am Center for Spiritual Living that supports people with awakening from their self imposed nightmares and fulfilling their life dreams. He
yeah.
volunteers at the Freedom to Choose project, bringing change to the inside of California prisons with compassionate experimental education. An amazing, amazing service.
And it's
He also,
experiential education, meaning you experience it rather than just read about it.
beautiful. He also serves with roots in Guinea Bissau
Yes.
by bringing solar light technology and sustainability projects to villages in the West African nation of Guinea-Bissau.
Yes.
Okay, there's more. Michael also supports people in recovery as a sober coach and accountability partner, leading people through the spiritual principles and practices that lead to living a life of freedom and joy. So
Yes.
you are perfect fit for coming and talking about transforming hardships into greater spiritual connection and joy. Welcome, Michael.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Peggy. It's a
You're
joy to be
welcome.
in this space with you, talking about one of my favorite topics, joy.
Yep,
Hmm.
me too. Me too. So,
Yeah.
Michael, yeah, to get us started, tell us a little bit about your sort of downside, your downward spiral. What was that like for you? Your journey through adversity.
Yeah, thanks, Peggy. Because I love talking about this. I often say that we find out who we are by having been who we are not. And so I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I went to Catholic school. I was a member of the Chicago Children's Choir. So, it was a fairy tale story. I spent all my free time at the Museum of Science and Industry because I was going to be a scientist when I grew up. And along the way, I began to experience some events in my life that I know now were traumatic. I witnessed trauma, violence in the streets of Chicago. I grew up in a neighborhood called The Pocket, which is Woodlawn. It's right next to University of Chicago, but it was also the birthplace of two of the nation's most notorious gangs. And I witnessed the emergence of these gangs and the violence that it fomented. And it wounded my young mind. And
Did you feel magnetized, lured, reeled in? Was it
so
at all sticky for you?
I felt overwhelmed. I felt powerless. I remember one day we were going to up 63rd Street, which was the general byway in our neighborhood. And my aunt, who helped my mom raise me, was taking me by the hand. We come outside, and one of the gangs had chased this guy up into our Courtway building, right? And they were brutalizing this man, literally just stomping him into the concrete. And I remember I was about 6, I think. And I told my aunt, I was like, Mama, they're hurting him. They're hurting him. We gotta stop him, Mama. I call my auntie Mama. And she said, boy, that ain't none of our business. You come on here. And she dragged me along. And I remember looking back, with horror at what I was witnessing and
Yeah.
feeling the compassion for him, that he was being hurt like that, wondering like what happened to these guys that were doing this, that they would forget, who they really were, and to do this. And then the terror that they might do that to me.
Yeah.
And so I had to create some power in my mind, some kind of way that I could manage this, I could deal with this terror,
Right.
because, it followed me to school every day.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
they're there. They're out. You're on the street. They're on the street.
absolutely.
You're accessible.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to develop an identity that would allow me to survive in that environment, right?
Mhm.
I literally had to become the monster that I feared the most.
Oh, sweetie.
And then when I got 11 years old, I got a sponsor, a young kid that was in the street. His name was Mohican. That was his street name. And he handed me a magical elixir and he says, "Here, young blood, take this. It'll make you feel better." And that magical elixir put a virus in a thought virus, an idea that overruled all other ideas for the next 22 years, because it was the nastiest thing I had ever tasted in my 11 years on earth. I mean, it was horrible, right? It was white port wine with grape Kool-Aid in it.
Oh, Jesus.
And yeah, I'm telling you, it had never seen a grape. This wine was chemically manufactured. But when I took that swallow, it hit me right in my solar plexus, and I felt a feeling that I chased for the next 22 years. And I never knew why. People would ask me, "Well, Mike, why do you drink like that?" Right? I could never come up with an answer.
Mm.
But I know now that it
Mm.
was medicine. It felt like it would help me deal with the powerlessness that I felt, in that environment. Right?
So how did you how did doing all that depending on alcohol impact your life?
So, they say it's not over till it's over. And so I spent 22 years looking for a spiritual experience. I was looking for a power
Mm.
that could help me solve my problem. Right?
Well, you
And
must have run into some
I,
psychedelics along the way. You were in the
well, yeah, they told me that
right?
if you take LSD, you can see God. I couldn't
Yeah.
wait to see God. And I went so far out that I would be saying, "God, okay, please, God, that's enough. Can I come home now?" And then the next day I'd do it all over again. But I realized, there are a lot of people now seeking that kind of an experience to alter their consciousness. And I think in a way that it was a therapy of sorts, because it did allow me to alter my consciousness, to
Yeah.
escape
Yeah.
from the intensity
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah. Well, how did it affect your functionality in your daily life?
Well, I basically dropped out. I was a Vietnam War anti-war protester. They
Mm.
were sending kids on my block to Vietnam.
Wow.
I protested the war. Most of high school I spent, doing walkouts and dropouts, and I ended up having to come to California to graduate high school because I literally had no credits.
Right.
I did. I went to a visa school. I was the only American out of 119 students, and I went to school from 6:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night. I went to adult education. I had programmed instruction, and I graduated right
And
on time.
how old were you?
I was 18 by the time I
Uh-huh.
graduated.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you knew that that was something that you needed to do for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I really wanted out of the intense environment of Chicago.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
People see the news now of the urban areas, and they don't realize, that was true 50 years ago. It
yeah,
just, we didn't have the media to report on it.
exactly.
But that kind of violence and terrorism was occurring even back then.
So tell us about hitting bottom.
So I began to, over the years, experience a series of spiritual experiences, but they didn't look like spiritual experiences. They looked like tragedies. They looked like darkness, and they involved the loss of people close to me. Most notably, my youngest brother, who gave his life to save a little baby. Lee was 11 years younger than me, and everybody loved Lee. He was our favorite. I was I guess you might call the black sheep of the family, but Lee was the mascot. Everybody loved Lee. He had these little curly eyelashes, little Bambi eyelashes, and all my girlfriends just loved Lee. Even my wife loved Lee, and he gave his life to save a little baby. And that night, a number of people were shot, but Lee was the only one who transitioned. And when that event happened, I began to question this God, that would take the good
Yeah,
brother
yeah, yeah.
and leave
Of
me.
course.
You know?
Why would this happen to me? Why
Yeah,
would
yeah.
this happen to him? Yeah.
Hmm.
How could God be good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so that conflict that I had with that power, it rose up. It was literally a resentment against God, and and it caused me to wander around, homeless with a home for an extended period of time. And then one day, I had this blinding flash of the obvious, and it said, "Hey, call that guy. That one that's in that program. Call him and see if he can help you, like get into Camarillo, get into a mental health place, right?" And so I used my last dime. I put it in a phone booth and I called this guy and I told him, I said, "Richard, you got to help me." I said, "Man, I'm having a nervous breakdown. Somebody killed my brother, and man, I've been trying to get in the crazy house. Literally, that's what I said to him. I said, but they won't take me. They keep telling me I'm an alcoholic, and I'm
Mhm,
not, man. I'm just sick. I need help."
mhm,
And then he said to me, he says, "Mike," he says, "you ever thought about going into a recovery home?"
mhm.
And when he said that, like this light bulb flashed, said, "Ding, a recovery home. Yeah, that's better than going in the crazy house, like
Yeah, yeah,
it's more
yeah.
respectable. And
Right.
you could go in there and act like you're an alcoholic, and maybe they'll get psychological help you need. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
you know and
Yeah.
and this guy, bless his heart, he's a dear friend of mine. This was 40 years ago, right? He's a dear friend of mine to this day, and he came and he got me. He stopped whatever he was doing and he got me. He put me in this little hoopty, his little car, and then he drove me over to this recovery center
What
where
an
the journey,
awesome
the
gift.
journey home began.
So then, did you, okay, so the next thing I'm curious about is how did working through the issues bring you, like maybe back to God or bring you
Hmm.
to a
Hmm.
greater spiritual connection of some sort? How did that
Yeah.
happen? How did that
So,
for
so, so the
you?
process first began with awareness, like I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know just how powerless I was against substances. Like I thought I could control it. I wasn't that bad. I was in serious denial. And,
Right.
and I learned denial is not a river in Egypt. It's real.
Right. Were
It's a
you
real
like,
thing.
were you economically functional? Like, did you have money to live or did you
Off and on, off
off
and
and on?
on.
It would go
What would happen is I'd stop drinking and my life is like a roller coaster. I'd go up and I got this job. I was working for a television show, doing contestants, my life was going good. But the minute I took one, then boom, I'd still come crashing down again.
yeah.
And
Okay.
I couldn't put it together,
Yeah.
the,
So
the,
yeah. So let's go back to the to the transformation? Like, how did you start to work your
Yeah.
way through
Yeah.
it?
So there was the awareness piece, right? Learning, right? 'Cause it's the
Yes.
educational piece. And I'm halfway smart, so I needed to learn about this thing that,
Yeah.
the physiology of it, the psychology, the even the spiritual implications,
Yeah.
right? Of my suffering, And then
Mhm.
I had to realize that I'm not this rugged individual. Like I could do it. I can make it. I'm going to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I'm going to beat this thing. That ain't what kind of party it is. This is about support. It's about community. It's about family.
Great. Yeah.
I, yeah, I
Yeah.
needed help in a serious way.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so I had to reach out to build a support network, a
Yeah.
team. I
Mhm.
had to get a sponsor, I had to get a mentor, I had to have a coach, I had to have spiritual support. It was like this whole village that I needed
Yeah.
pull me back from that
A
other
whole
side.
team to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I totally relate that. Me too.
Yeah, yeah. So and that was a slow roll, It began with getting a sponsor, somebody who was deeply entrenched in this work. And fortunately, his wife had been sober since 1941. She was like, an OG. She was a real old timer in the program. And her humility really just planted itself inside of me and opened my heart. Because if she could be as humble as she was, being 40 years sober, I realized that, I had a long way to go.
Yeah. So I just want to slow down there for a minute. It's interesting to me that as a person who was still sort of at the bottom and reaching up, that you could identify that humility was actually a value, something that you wanted to emanate, that you saw as this is a sign of a good person. And I could, if she can do it, I can do it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think that's really beautiful, that it wasn't because somebody had a nice car or because they had, a big
Mhm.
trophy or something. This is because of their humility. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that made me awaken to the fact that I needed to be teachable. I had
Humility and being teachable go together.
absolutely. And I had a bad case of the I knows, right?
Yes. So
They said, well,
totally.
this is not be. I know. But the truth was that I didn't know. And I
Right.
didn't even know I didn't know. So, that connection, being connected started to bring me back from the other side where I was able to rejoin the human race.
So connection to the people, connection to yourself, connection to God. Which kind of connection were you experiencing at that stage?
Yes, yes. So first, it was the connection to people, to find out that I was a part of the human race, that I
Beautiful.
was not defective.
Yeah,
You
you're not
know,
alone. You're not
right,
separate.
right. There was nothing wrong with me.
Yeah,
As a divine being, I was having a human experience.
right.
And, as a human being, I have some things, like I can't put my hand in fire. Certain things I can't do. I can't jump off the Empire State Building. I have some limitations as a human
Right.
being,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And so that process began of
I
rejoining,
can't get my happiness out of a bottle.
yes, or out of anything external, not
Yeah.
out of the bottle, out of her, out of the money, out of the car, the house, all that stuff that my head told me I needed to have in order to be okay.
Mhm.
None of that
Right.
was the true source of my power, you know,
Right. And
right?
happiness and joy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then there was healing that relationship with my idea of God, my own conception of a
Mhm.
power greater than myself.
Yes.
I've always been a student of spirit, of the divine, of the sacred. I was an altar boy, and even though the dogma I was raised up in taught certain things, I knew inside of me, like the young Jesus did at age 12, I knew inside of me that there was something else going on.
Beautiful.
And I began to seek it.
Very
And
nice. Yeah, we
yeah.
have that in common. I had that too. Yeah.
So,
I
so they
yeah.
told me that, a spiritual experience was something that anybody who asked for it could have it.
Mm.
And my sponsor turned me on to a book called The Varieties of Religious Experience. It
Oh,
was by
wow.
Williams James. He was a psychologist during the 19th century, and
Hmm.
he just wrote about religious experience or spiritual experiences. And the essence of what he wrote is that nobody can say for another whether their experience is valid. No,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
it's personal.
it's alone, a one and alone. It's only you that, and the thing that, I mean, I don't know. I wonder if you had the experience of when you did have a spiritual experience. Did you know that that was more real than anything else? Did you
Oh,
doubt that?
absolutely. I knew it was. And I
Me
went to
too.
my counselor, and I said to him, I says, I don't know. I think I'm having a flashback, right? He said, well, whatever it is, it's better than what you had. So just hold on to it.
Good.
And that relationship began to deepen. There was a reciprocity, like a correspondence taking place,
Beautiful.
you know, and
So it started to be not a one-way relationship, but a two-way relationship.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like hummingbirds. I like rainbows. I like those things that evoke the spiritual. But I needed lightning. I needed spiritual lightning. I needed to be struck, right? Because I just needed that change. I needed
Yeah.
that shift, and and
Beautiful.
and that is what has allowed me to what I like to call transmute poison into medicine. So
Yeah.
those things that happened to me when I was a youngster, what they
Mhm.
did is they set me up to be the peacemaker that I am today. It's
Beautiful.
like my soul chose to be born into that environment so
Yeah.
I could witness that, and then I could become the man that I am today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you started to have the two-way conversation with spirit, God, the one, whatever, however you call,
Hmm.
how did you notice that your life started changing?
So there was a correspondence. It was like writing a love letter,
Oh,
and then the letter comes back signed. And the analogy that I make is like, in second grade, I write this little note. I like you. Do you like me too? To that little girl across the classroom, and then
Valentine's Day, yeah,
yeah,
something.
and I pass it to my friend. He would pass it to his friend, and it would go across the room, and I'm waiting with bated breath, waiting, and then she opens it up and looks, and then she circles yes, because it says circle yes or no, right? So, and it's as if spirit is always circling yes for me,
Oh,
always responding,
yeah,
and
and then so how did your life start to change? Like what what things started happening?
So the people in my life, family, my little girl was 3 when I got sober, and she would just tell anybody who would listen, excuse me, my daddy don't drink beer no more. My daddy don't drink beer no more. She told everybody, right? So my life began to change as a husband, as a father. We just out of a clear blue sky, about 7 years in, became homeowners. I got a library card. I have a voter's registration card, a driver's license, and these were things that I didn't
And
have.
bona fide,
That's right, certified, qualified.
bona fide, qualified.
Yeah, so my life
Yeah.
started going up. you know and that question that I used to always ask the divine, like, what do you want from me? That question began to be louder and louder.
Mm.
What is
Did you
spirit?
get your memo?
Yes,
What did it
absolutely.
say? Yes or not? Did it?
It said yes, yes, yes. The universe always says yes. And a series of what I call coinkydinks,
Mhm. Serendipities?
synchronicities.
Yeah.
Yep. Serendipities, coincidences, and synchronicities started to happen that let me know that I was on a path with purpose. And there was a method to the madness. All the
So,
stuff that
so
I
tell us a little bit about what you started, like what did you start to do, stop to do?
well,
Where did you find yourself?
the first thing that I realized was that my mind was the seat of confusion, right? I had a
Right.
magic magnifying mind. I had a crazy roommate that Michael Singer calls, crazy roommate that was talking nonstop, right?
Right. I love that.
Filled with
That he talks about,
anxiety
yeah.
about the future, right? Because it was always telling me, we're going to hell in a handbasket. It's not going to end up right. You're going to fail. You're never going to do right. And then it was in the past about the shame and the blame. You know what you did. You'll never be right. And it was just constantly broadcasting. And so
Mm,
I used to listen to KPFK at night because I couldn't sleep. And I would
mm,
listen until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and listen
mm.
to Alan Watts and Krishnamurti. And one night, I'll never forget this night, J. Krishnamurti said, I am not the voice in my head. I am the one who hears it. I am the witness. And when I heard that, I'm telling you, it was like a gong went off. It said,
Yeah,
ding, you know,
yeah, you knew it. That's the truth.
I'm not the voice. I'm the witness to it. I hear it, but I can just say thank you for sharing, right? But
Right, exactly.
I can
And
do something
and what
else.
I teach people is to say, shut up, go away.
Yeah, give it another job, right? No. And I
Exactly.
began to develop a meditation practice. And I mean,
Mhm.
it was slow, and slower. I would do 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, you know,
Wow.
5 minutes. And then I'd be, my mind's racing and I'm thinking, oh, that's not meditation. But it was the best that I could do. And it
Beautiful.
began to deepen. And then you know what happened? The
What?
voice in, the voice in my head, it moved next door.
Yay.
I could hear it, but it was down the hall.
Yeah.
And then it was farther. It was in the next house. I could hear it over there,
Beautiful.
but there was this silence, this peace inside of me.
So so it's very interesting that the meditation brought a quieting of the shame, of
Yeah,
the doubt, shame and doubt,
yes,
I would say.
yes, yes.
Right?
And what I was able to realize is that guilt was simply a belief that I did something bad.
Yes, exactly.
Shame was simply a belief that I am something bad.
Exactly.
Blame was a belief that it was somebody's fault.
Right.
If they hadn't have done to me what they did to me, I wouldn't be the way I am now. That was the belief system that I had. But they were simply beliefs, and it didn't make them true. Just like I used to believe that I could take a drink and
Love that. They were beliefs, but I didn't have to believe that they were true.
exactly.
Very, very beautiful distinction. Yeah.
Exactly. My head used to tell me I'm going to go to happy hour and I'm going to come home after that, right? Well, 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm closing up the bar,
You
that
wouldn't
was
come home.
it was never true. It was
Yeah.
never true.
So how did you start to make your segue into service, Michael? And also I want to talk to you about the element of joy. The subtitle of this podcast is transforming hardships into greater spiritual connection and joy. So we
Yes,
talked some
yes.
about your spiritual connection. How
Mhm.
did the transformation that you went through bring more joy into your life?
Yes, yes. So as I began to learn how to mine for this gold, what I discovered is that the joy was in giving it away. I couldn't keep all of this. It was so good. I just couldn't keep it. The people
Yes,
that,
that's like a full heart. It just starts to like a fountain. It just has to spill over, right? So your heart was
yes,
full instead of
yes.
empty, which is such a beautiful thing to sort of take a moment for that. That's what transformation does,
Absolutely.
when we heal the
Mhm.
heart, when the critical voice starts to get quieter and quieter, and
Mhm.
all of these things, we get community, we get connection with ourselves, we get connection with people, we get connection with, we feel loved, we feel we
Yeah,
belong. That
exactly.
then I forgot what I was going to say
Yeah,
next, but
yeah, yeah. And it's contagious, right? It
yeah,
joy is a vibration, it's a frequency that's contagious. When
yes.
when you're in joy, everybody around you knows it. At my home group, in
And
my
then they choose whether they want to vibe with you or not, right?
right, right. They
Yeah.
figure it out. In my home group, I was going to say, where I recovered, people had started calling me Crying Mike, right? Because every time I shared, the joy would overwhelm me, and my eyes would start leaking because my heart had opened. And for me, that was freedom because all my life I had been ashamed of crying, I had been ashamed of my open heart, right? I didn't want anybody to know that I was compassionate, that I was kind, that I was gentle. You know what I mean? That I love people, right? That was like a secret, and it started leaking out. And once it did, like I couldn't turn it off. And I was so grateful because it was freedom. Joy is freedom, to be free, to finally be able to feel what we feel and to know that we don't have to judge ourselves for it, right?
And to
Because
be who it is that we're here to be. I mean, that's for me the so much the freedom. Like I
yeah,
can be this, I can be an awesome person. I can be a person
right,
with
right,
overflowing joy. I can be a
yes,
person with depth and
yes,
insight and what, help,
yeah,
service, whatever.
right, right. And not to hide anymore, you
Yeah,
know?
and I have to hide it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And to break free of, oh, I'm the black sheep of my family, or oh, I have to be this way because of this expectation of these people, or they won't like me. And the freedom
mhm,
is just like, you know what? If they do or don't, it doesn't really matter because what's
mhm,
important is that I'm being me. I'm being
yeah,
true to myself. And I feel like that's so much what freedom is about.
right,
And
right.
that brings
Yeah.
joy. It's like freedom, and then when you experience that freedom, the
Mhm.
emotion that is behind that is joy, right?
Right, right, right. And you want to be around joy, and joy wants to be around joy. And I always say, you don't have to dance with everybody because you're not going to like everybody, but you got to dance with somebody. And I'll dance with people who are in joy. And sometimes, people need support. Like I need support. Somebody might call me for help and I need lifting, and that's how it works, right? They lift me up by supporting them. It's reciprocity.
Yes, beautiful.
Mhm.
I have to share that I came to your birthday party a month or so ago, and I had never been the only white person at a party, and I felt like that little girl in the John Baptiste video. Like they're all on the black people on the street dancing, and there's one little girl there doing a hopscotch. I walked in, I was like, "Well, I'm her for a minute," and then.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
but that's not what I was going to allude to. That was a funny transition. But
yeah.
the thing that really was amazing to me is that your family, there was like 50 people there, and I was there for at least 3 or 4 hours, and I never saw one drop of alcohol. Not a wine, not a beer, not anything.
Mm.
And everybody was present, everybody was caring and loving. And I, I mentioned it to a couple people. They said, "Oh, well, we have alcohol at my house," or something. And I just thought it was so beautiful that your community supported you in reflecting the commitment that you've made to be sober by doing that with you and for you. And I just thought that there's some reciprocity going on there.
Yes, indeed, indeed. As grandmother would say, eagles and buzzards don't fly together. Birds of a feather flock together, and it
Right.
was truly a
Yeah.
joyous experience. And
It was
I was
beautiful.
so surprised to see you and so delighted. It was so cool.
It was a surprise party, and I hope you were surprised. Oh my
I
God.
was shocked. I was shocked.
Michael is celebrating his 39th birthday for the 39th.
There you go for the 39th time. Yeah, there you
Not
go.
quite, not quite.
That's right. I'm on my
Anyway,
way.
what else you want to share with us today? Is there anything else that you
I,
can?
I just want to remind folks that, as human beings, we are all going through stuff. If you're not going through stuff, you're about to go through something. If you're not, or maybe you just went through something and you're just coming out. But I just want to say that we're in community. We are a human family, and like I said, you don't have to dance with everybody, but dance with somebody. Because you find that just in connection and commitment to that engagement in your own life, you find that you bring some to get some. Oh,
Right.
and I just would invite people to, put me on your team if you need somebody to chat with, somebody to work through, your issues. reach out to me. I'm
Yeah,
available.
so why don't you tell us your website and also share with people how they can maybe go to a meeting if they're having substance abuse issues, something like that, any
Yeah.
kind of addiction kind of problems. How can they connect with a group that might be supportive for them?
Absolutely. Well, of course, the 12-step programs are worldwide and you can always Google them. But sometimes you might find it helpful to go through, a sober coach, somebody who can kind of guide you through and,
And
show
that's what you
you
do.
the land. That's what I do. Absolutely. And,
So how
there's
do people find the 12-step programs online? I don't really know.
well, you can go to AA.org. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. Also, there's Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. They all have websites, web presence. You can just Google. I would sometimes people call the 800 number if they're looking for recovery, but I think it's
What is
better.
that number?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of 800 numbers
Oh,
out
okay.
there.
You don't.
That's all
Okay.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
say the personal touch is to me preferable. That's what
Yes,
brought
of
me here.
course. Yes. Yes.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
know from my own process, I would never have made it without an individual who was sort of knew about the difficulties of my life
Right,
and could help me connect with a vision of myself that was my full potential.
right,
That's
right.
a very, very important person to have. So how can people get a hold of you, Michael?
Well, there's that website, www.mikelattimore.com.
Okay.
I have a website for spiritual services such as weddings and bar mitzvahs and christenings and that sort of thing. But MikeLattimore.com will work. And on Instagram, I'm at cybersafelosangeles.com because I help people not only protect their personal computers, but also their human computer. Because you can catch a virus in your
Good
thought the same way on your computer, right? So,
point. Good point.
yep, yep.
Good point.
Yeah, that's the best way to reach out to me.
That's great. Yeah, so check him out and be sure to uh let's see, I forgot what I was gonna say, but anyway, we're gonna wrap up now and I want to thank you so much, Michael, for being a stellar human being, for servicing yourself to people in the 12-step program, for helping people in Guinea-Bissau, for bringing them solar power, for helping the people in the prisons, and for just being an incredible lighthouse
Mm,
of what's possible when people go through transformation and how much joy it brings to not only heal, but then to the joy that comes from giving back. So
mm.
thank
Thank
you
you, Peggy. It's
so
an
much.
honor to
Really
support you.
appreciate
And I also wanted to let folks know that they can reach out to ahia.com, which is AHIAH.com, and catch me with a Sunday talk or perhaps one of the healing circles that I do during the week.
Are you doing the talks online?
Yes, they
Oh,
are
far out. I'm
online.
going to check it out. I'm going to do that. Okay,
Hmm.
you can have me a guest speaker sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
if you do that. I don't even know if you do.
That'd be great. That'd be
Yeah.
great. Yeah, it's Ahia CSL Pasadena, and CSL stands for Centers for Spiritual Living, and it's Ahia, AHIAH. I am,
Okay.
and I am. Okay,
Great.
great.
I am, then I am. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, you guys will keep tuned in. Next week, we'll have another amazing person. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but it'll be another amazing adventure through the downward spiral and the transformation that comes from ascending up, 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 and being coming into the embodiment of our true selves. So leave a review, check the link below or something. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Anyway, I'm learning all this stuff. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you. I love you. And everybody else, I love you too. I'll see you on the next round. So long for now.